Hi boys and girls, it's Show back with another video. Looking to cover the Manchester United defensive midfield problem in this vid. We know, I've discussed, kind of briefly touched and alluded on the fact that there's a hole there in the team. In the previous game against Southampton, we saw it rear its ugly head again with Matic being unable to kind of keep with a lot of the Southampton attacking players, the high press having a massive impact on our back four, not being able to find an outlet in midfield who could take it under control and really get us moving in the right direction to counter or get our attacking patterns of play in action. So this has been a hot topic, especially as we approach the end of the transfer window. It closes on the 31st of August at about 11 PM, I believe. So it could be business that could still be done, so it's worth talking about, as well as whether this is an option that's being held off for next season, next summer's transfer window, possibly January as well, mid-season, and what options would really be best suited to Manchester United in terms of the current market availability and style of play. Now, the names that I could just reel off immediately that United are linked with, Declan Rice being the number one, and then we have Yves Bissouma at Brighton, Ruben Neves as well at Wolves. We also have a couple of French defensive midfielders as well that we're linked with, which is Edouard Camavinga from Rennes, and we've also got Aurélien Tchouaméni from Monaco. Now he's also very, very young, only recently burst onto the scene last year as well. And then, lastly, I guess Ndidi is sort of like the kind of lazy one that is put out there as well in terms of who United could sign. So if we look at those options and discuss what would be best out of the ones that I've just mentioned, I mean, if we just, again, I'm just going to put that out there, Wilfred Ndidi, quality defensive midfielder. We know what he brings to Leicester City, breaks up the play, covers every blade of grass, really puts out fires everywhere. He's injury prone, and from previous experience dealing with Leicester City, we know what a hard bargain they usually give us in terms of driving up the price on players. We saw that with Harry Maguire. I think it would be a complete and utter waste of time to go after Wilfred Ndidi, especially with the injury record. I also think that the way Leicester City have kind of started this season as well, and the amount of injuries that they've got defensively at the moment, like a lot of their defence has gone down injured. Ndidi would be a defensive option for them even at this late stage, so that is completely and utterly off the table. And as the oldest of these options as well, going into next season, I don't see that ever happening. Now, if we move on to the French duo that I mentioned, Camavinga and Tchouaméni, they have similar styles in terms of their obviously their youth. Camavinga only 19 years old. Tchouaméni's only 21, and Tchouaméni he burst onto the season really last year. I mean, Camavinga, I think he's very much been touted in terms of how he's been brought through sort of French youth football as well, that this guy would be a budding star, whereas Tchouaméni, the way he played for Monaco last season, playing all their games pretty much, getting them to third place in Ligue 1, spectacular, and he's not talked about a lot. So I do think that would be an interesting option if, say, there was an opportunity to maybe drive down the price, and if we put it off for another season. But that being said, I think he's the least realistic out of the ones that could be got in terms of, like I say, opportunity and availability at this stage. Camavinga, we know he has 1 year left on his contract. He's not going to be signing another one. He wants to move on. There's a lot of clubs that are after him. Now, if we run that down another year, all the clubs in La Liga that are in financial strife, they'll be involved in the deal. I've heard reports that he's intrigued by the prospect of playing for Real Madrid or Barcelona. being in French and part of Ligue 1, PSG would be very convenient as well, and a step up in terms of who he's playing with, an opportunity to play deep into Champions League football. So really the initiative, the incentive is now. With the Camavinga deal, we have to pull the trigger now. Now, in terms of his playing style, he's a little bit more versatile than Tchouaméni. Can do a bit more in terms of, has elements that are similar to Pogba in terms of how graceful he is on the ball, the physicality, that type of thing. He's not obviously as tall as Pogba, but in terms of just an absolute baller, which Camavinga is. But then he's got one of the highest tackle success rates in Europe, and I think he would develop into an absolute superstar at Manchester United. So for me, the question with him is, opportunity's there. You can get him for about 35 million euros. Do you take it now, hoping that, well, could he cut slot right in because he's better suited to playing defensive midfield than what we've already got with Fred and McTominay, or do you look for an option that's more of a win now, someone that's a bit older, in their prime, maybe with Premier League experience, and that could be something that Manchester United really, that could be the sticking point in that deal, is that they look to really bolster that area with someone that can help United win now, especially with the signing of Ronaldo, Varane, players that certainly are looking to win now in their primes or past their primes, and looking for as many trophies as they can really get on their belt before it's all said and done. So and then if we look at the Premier League options, we've got Yves Bissouma and Neves. Now both of those wouldn't be that expensive, they're roughly about 40 million, around about that area, 40 million pounds. Now, the Bissouma one, and I think is a very interesting one because he is very much come into his own over the last sort of 6 months. Both Neves and him are both only 24 years old, so they're still young, can develop a bit, but you could be signing them for a good 6 seasons, and so that'd be like really, really good business. And he's someone that is, if you compare him to Ndidi, he's very much reliable and rarely gets injured. And in terms of the way Brighton play, how they like to get on the front foot, be expansive, they do play some really nice football in the Graham Potter. It's because Bissouma allows that. He covers every blade of grass, similar to Ndidi. The thing, what I like about him in particular, though, is that I think people have kind of like shoehorned him into, like I say, a defensive midfield, but he is a little bit more versatile than that. I think he can be aggressive in his positioning, certainly use his athleticism to position himself higher up the pitch, to not only screen the back four, but screen areas within your attacking phase. So whether that's Shaw's bombed on down the left hand side, you need usually it'd be someone like Maguire that would slot in to cover that angle, to protect that angle. But we don't really want to be doing that. If you can get someone that's like Bissouma who can just do that left and right and just fill in those angles at the right time higher up the pitch, and you can really keep teams pinned in their own half, which would be really, really effective. So I very much like the way he plays. I mean, he's a destroyer, but with a little bit more ability than that, and I think that could go a long way at Manchester United. Whereas Neves, on the other hand, he is very much a deep lying playmaker. The destroying is not like his absolute strength. He can put his foot in. He likes to get about, make tackles, a bit like Paul Scholes, but I wouldn't sort of maybe yet put him under the kind of bracket of being unable to actually make an actual tackle without sliding in and fouling somebody. But a passing range which is very, very good, can spring attacks from anywhere, and this is something that United desperately need. We've been relying on having Maguire and Lindelof spring our attackers going beyond the defensive line. We've not been feeding it into the sort of deep place midfielders to do that because they just don't have the ability. Fred and McTominay, they're a very good duo. They complement each other. Their flaws are less exposed when they are together. So I think Fred, he's very much the person that I would operate in defensive midfield at the moment without an option signed, because he's tenacious and he likes to put in a tackle, and he has a little bit more of an understanding of what his limitations are, so he's going to stay and screen that back four a little bit more positionally. Whereas McTominay, I think some United fans as well were convinced that he would, just because he's tall and kind of looks a bit like a Scottish slash Mancunian version of Nemanja Matic, that he was going to be converted into a defensive midfielder. It's just absolutely not his game. He's a box-to-box midfielder that loves to drive with the ball, really stretch his legs out and use his physicality, be up and down. And we've seen when he's at his most effective is when he's playing against teams like Leeds, a bit of space to utilise on the pitch. And I see him being a very, very good squad player for Man United, and could develop in that area. If we sign a defensive midfielder and allow him to play that position more often, and he's just forced to sort of develop that role more and more, he could become an even better player than we're seeing here. It won't just be sort of just more of the same for the next 5 years or something like that. So very much it's important for McTominay's development with the sign of defensive midfielder as well. For me, Fred would be the one that absolutely drops out and becomes the bench player, or the one that would be surplus to requirements down the line. So with Neves, this is the interesting thing is, do you sign a destroyer? Do you sign a deep line playmaker? It's a difficult decision because they both would bring so much to Manchester United. Now, if you can have a player that can do a bit of both, then I think that would be astute business, especially if you don't want to look to pay for two over, say, this transfer window and the next. So for me, the option of maybe picking up a Saul, 26 years old, right in his prime, helped lead Atletico Madrid to a La Liga title last season. We've seen what he can do in the Champions League. He's, remember scoring one unbelievable goal against Bayern Munich. He's versatile, has that kind of dogged mentality to play in a Simeone system. I remember Guillaume Ballier describing him, I think it was back in 2018, something like that, saying that how he was kind of a unique Spanish midfielder because he could not only play that kind of tactical deep role that Simeone enforces, where he's playing in a double pivot and has to sort of defend for his life and that type of thing, but he could also play a Barcelona system and play a bit of a tiki-taka, link the play really, really well, and sort of outpossess teams. So that's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for someone that can do a bit of both, because if you can get a player that can function well in a counter-attack and then can also function well when you're trying to beat low blocks, which is something that has plagued Man United in recent seasons, that inability to break down low blocks, then that's an absolute win-win. And to get him on a loan to buy option because of the financial situations of the Liga, I just think that's it's business that we should be doing. I think you take that plunge now. You don't even have to buy him next season. You don't have to do that. You just get him in now. And the signing of Cristiano Ronaldo, I didn't mention this in the last video, really. I didn't really touch on it, and it's a good point, is that his professionalism and the kind of star power that he brings, I think really would intrigue other players, to play while we've got him for those 2 seasons. So if that's something you can really take advantage of now and get the players in now, then we should be pulling the trigger on some of these deals. Even if financially you go a bit sort of further than you wanted to in terms of signing players. That Ronaldo's going to sell his shirts. We're going to make that money back, and I just think he's going to have such an effect off the pitch in terms of, like I say, the draw of players you can sign, but also sort of developing the professionalism of players that are already there. So I just think Saul that would be a really, really good deal. And then Neves and Bissouma, like I say, both players that I think could be available at the right price. I think Bissouma is a little bit more important to Brighton than Neves is to Wolves, if we're being perfectly honest. I know João Moutinho is getting on, but I do think they could sign a replacement. Whereas I think Bissouma, he was such a fantastic pickup for them, and they don't have someone as dynamic as that, because, like I said, like Neves, a type of player that needs to be in a pair. That's the thing with deep line playmakers; they need to be together with somebody, usually a destroyer. That would be the perfect balance, so, a la, Kante and Jorginho. I mean, that is like the sort of dream partnership that you'd be looking for. So, if I was being greedy, I'd want both Neves and Bissouma both available, and would really balance each other out and really improve the options at Manchester United. It would not only sort of fill the void that we've had for so long, but like I say, it'd just turn it into an absolute strength if we signed both of them. Lastly, I'll just touch on obviously Declan Rice. That one we know would be a deal for next summer. If we do that, it's potentially someone we could get. Like I say, I feel some of the signings we've made this summer has really put us on the map again. If we can reinforce that by making sure that we secure top 3, getting to at least a quarter-final of the Champions League, and ideally winning a cup, then those are the kind of things to do on the pitch that are really going to add to what's been going off the pitch with the transfers and the calibre of player we've now brought into the club. That someone like Declan Rice, it turns heads. You'll be thinking, no, I want a piece of that. I want Manchester United. So someone as expensive as him, that we know he's been priced out of a move this summer, really, with 100 million, especially sort of on the impact of COVID-19. He's still 22 years old, which is absolutely ridiculous. I think he's not underrated, because a lot of people out there maybe overrate him, but I think he's certainly rated right, because a lot of people put English tax, which is true, on the players, but that's not his fault. You've seen that with Jack Grealish as well. The way he started with Manchester City, he's fitting pretty well with them and setting the Etihad alight. So, clearly these players are talented enough. The Premier League is now the toughest league in the world, so if they're doing it here, that's what you want. Because at the end of the day, that's your bread and butter, is to play 38 games in the Premier League season, to do that well, and take care of business there domestically. So, Declan Rice, I just think what I really, really like about him is his personality, and that's really, I think, why he's considered our number one target. I think Solskjaer really likes him. He fits with, how we try to develop the players' mentality, that type of thing, and he very much has that kind of Brian Robson, not quite Roy Keane, because he's not obviously as angry, blatantly angry as Roy Keane, sort of win at all costs. But in terms of the heart and desire, lead by example, he will just run through a brick wall for his team. And what I really like about it as well is that he seems to be a player that just knows how to balance out midfield. So if he was playing alongside Pogba, Bruno, hopefully if Pogba stays, even like a Donny van de Beek or any of those players, I think he tactically seems to know where to be, where to place himself, and how to play. I think his game's developing nicely as well in terms of his ball carrying. His passing range could definitely improve, and that is really the thing that makes me hesitant about which one to choose out of the options that we could have. And this is the thing, there are absolutely loads. Like, you think about the options I've just listed off, some are available now, and this is something that is totally fixable, but it's just about getting the right one. And I think it comes down to 3 things. Do you want a destroyer? Do you want a deep line playmaker? And do you want a win now type of player, or one that has potential? I think they're kind of things that you need to be looking at. Can you cross several off the list? Like I say, Saul, I think he would be a win now option, and he's versatile and would kind of cover both sort of destroyer and deep line playmaker positions. And then if you've got someone like a Camavinga, that type of player, the potential there is just so mouth-watering. The way he sort of played against PSG when he first burst onto the scene when he was 16 years old was absolutely ridiculous when he played them. I think he's physically more capable than people realise, so I would not be surprised at all if we thought, let's pull the trigger on that deal. He can offer a bit this season, doesn't have to do it for entire 38 games, but in certain key games, and then we can bring him on, and maybe improve some of the players that are currently occupying in that position, knowing they've got someone pushing them, knocking at the door, a bit like how we had with Brandon Williams initially when Shaw went through a bit of a dip as well. So very much I think my choice out of these options would be personally Saul Niguez with a loan option to buy, then sign someone else next year. I would do that, especially this late in the transfer window. So Saul Niguez this season, then if you can get in a a transfer battle with Chelsea and win it. With Rice, great, go for him. If not, Bissouma and Neves, they're just there. They're just right there. You could easily get them, and we can get them next season. So Saul now, and like I said, I'd go with one of the Premier League options next season while we've got a bit of money back, and hopefully next season some actual sales, because it's getting a little bit ridiculous the amount of players that are currently just sitting on contracts at the club. But we'll see. I hope you enjoyed it. Very interesting to talk about, really, and hopefully United do the right thing for the good of the fans, please. But yeah, please like, subscribe, and comment on the video. If there's anything else you want to me to cover, anything like that, just please throw it in there. And yeah, please put in the comments as well who you would think United should sign, who you think United will sign, and who you want them to sign would be great. Okay, but yeah, thanks a lot for tuning in, and take care.